Hello and welcome to Decks Done Right TCG. This is another episode of the Deck Doctor, here to explain what people might be doing right now currently with evaluating cards. What are good cards? What are bad cards? Why do people want bad cards to be good cards? So we're going to take a look at a few things here. So with the new set that comes out, there's always people that are speculating on what might be a good card to use, and something may look powerful, something may look really bad. So we're going to look at some examples of cards at the end of, well, I'll say at the end. In this discussion, we're going to talk about a card from the new set that has a lot of hype and a lot of people trying to make good, and we're going to talk about why that might not be what is going to happen at the end of the thing. So let's take a look at some things here. We got a card in Disrupting Shoal. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with the card, it's basically a freeze counterspell, but the condition of the counterspell is that you have to exile exile a card with the same converted mana cost as the spell that it is trying to counter. So for instance, if your opponent is playing a 4 mana spell, then you need to exile a 4 mana spell from your hand to play Disrupting Shoal for free. And well, you might say, well, free counterspells, that's always a good thing. What about Force of Will, which is the other card that's similar to it, but they're vastly different cards. Force of Will can pitch any card to any blue card to counter a spell. It doesn't have to have a requirement of a certain converted mana cost. And so Disrupting Shoal, though it may look good and may be appealing as a viable counterspell to use in the modern format, it's just not that great. There's other options out there that are better for you to use that can get the job done. So let's talk about maybe another card that we'll say this is a card comparison of a high value creature. Meaning, so the card is Dreadnought. Okay, Phyrexian Dreadnought. Now, a 1 mana 12/12 Trampler sounds insane, and thus it should have an insane drawback, which it does. And so there's this theory in card design that if you make a card bad enough that you give it enough of a drawback, if you aggressively cost the creature, that it makes it unplayable. And people have tried to make the card playable. There's been various cards that have somewhat enabled it. There was a deck in Legacy called Stifle Knot, and basically this card, there was a deck that was brewed around this card to try and make it to where a 1 mana 12/12 became a viable option. It played cards like Stifle and Torpor Orb and what have you, to try to make it to where you could play this 1 mana 12/12 and make it good. Well, the thing about a 1 mana 12/12 is it should have a significant drawback. And thus, when you play a card like Phyrexian Dreadnought, you're putting yourself at card disadvantage because you're having to play another card to make the card good. It's not inherently good on its own. And another card that could be put in that category as being a good card that is aggressively costed is Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf on average is a 4/5 for 2, sometimes a 5/6 for 2 mana, and it has no drawback really. It gets bigger by the progression of the game inherently as it's played. So you're not having to 2-for-1 yourself to play this card. You're just playing naturally the game, and you're getting a benefit from playing the card as a good card. So lastly of this discussion, why it's pretty prevalent right now is the card Mox Amber. Now, Mox Amber, people have been trying to talk about how good this card is, or it should be, because it simply is a Mox. It's a 0 mana artifact that taps for any one color of the color of the legendary planeswalker or legendary creature you have in play. So anytime you look at a card that can give you free mana, you have to evaluate it that it might be potentially a busted card. However, it's not. And so one of the other cards that people have pointed to, and we'll just briefly discuss the comparison of here, is Mox Opal. Now, Mox Opal is another free artifact, but it can tap for any color, so it's already got a plus on it there. But it naturally fits in decks that you're already trying to play that style of deck for. So what I mean by that is you're already playing artifacts for this deck, and therefore you're probably going to have Metalcraft online. You're not going to have to go out of your way to try to make the card good, which is what all of these 3 cards have in common. The bad cards, if you will, the Disrupting Shoal, the Phyrexian Dreadnought, and the Mox Amber, they're all bad cards that people want them to be good and try to make them good, even though they have inherent hoops that they have to jump through to make them even playable. Now, I've heard this, seen this run around a lot is, well, it's a Mox. The Mox Amber is a Mox, so it obviously has to be good. But that's not a true statement either, because there's been Magic's biggest and most relevant card is Black Lotus, and it's the most iconic card. So there have been other cards in Magic's history that have had Lotus in the name, and there's been a lot of good ones, but there's also been some bad ones. Lotusville says what's up. So that is an invalid argument. Just because other cards that have the word in the name doesn't make them a good card. Doesn't just automatically make it worth, the crazy amount of money that this card is asking for right now. So that's another thing that we could discuss. Well, the price must mean that but it's a $20 card, so it must be playable. Well, not necessarily. We just discussed all 3 of those cards, right? Disrupting Shoal's $20 roughly right now. Phyrexian Dreadnought right now is about $15, and Mox Amber is about $20. And so, with that said, we've got these different cards that have pretty decent, asking prices. Does that mean that they're good? No, that doesn't mean that they're good at all. There's a bunch of people that play casual decks. For instance, Doubling Season. Doubling Season is a really expensive card. I don't know. I actually didn't look at the price of it for this particular discussion. But last I remember, it was something like $60+, and it's not played in any competitive format. It's just a fun card that's used in Commander or what have you. So, in short, what this kind of breaking down to is, are these cards playable? Sure, they're playable, but you have to work insanely hard to try to make them good. while you could just be playing other cards that are already good. Like, I don't want to discourage anybody from trying to brew or making brewing something out that they might think works well. More power to you, but you're jumping through hurdles that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily have to if you just use different cards. So, thank you guys for your time. If you have any questions, please leave those in the comments below, and I'll try to address them as soon as I can. All right, thanks.